Another newsflash, your yeses are a commodity. Right?
Yeah.
Your yeses are worth something. Your time is worth something. So if somebody irritates the heck out of you, or can I pick your brain, why would you give that person your time, let alone any of your brain?
Good morning, good life. Welcome back to this episode of Detail Therapy. I'm back on the mic, back home. So pumped. I was traveling for a little while. I was doing things a little run and gun on the podcast. Maybe you noticed. Maybe you didn't. But it is so nice to just be on the microphone with you today in my usual podcasting space, especially today because I have someone very special on the show. I'm so excited to share with you. He's a frequent flyer on Gatlu and Detail Therapy, and that's my dear friend, Chris Ducker. He's helping us out today. This guy, he knows what he's talking about. He's a very successful entrepreneur. He's a millionaire, and he's telling us what we need to say yes and no to, or at least what he does. And I think we can take a few notes from that. And with that information, find out how we can be in profit for the end of 2022 and set ourselves up for a profitable 2023. This is so important. We cannot slow down at the end of the year. We have to balance our time so we spend great time with our family and say yes to the right things so we can do that. And yes to the right things in our business, in our side hustle, in our work, so that we are in the best case scenario as we finish 2022. A lot of people chill and let go and stop and slow down at this time of year. And I don't want that to be you, but I want you to stay focused on the right things during this time. So we're not wasting it on things that don't matter when we could be doing more with the people who do. So Chris is going to help us out with that today. He's also hosting a free live event coming up soon, November 8th through the 10th. I know I'm going to be there. I've signed up. I even signed up to be a VIP because it's an absolute no-brainer. You can find out all the details right now. Skip ahead, and just get ahead on the whole thing. Gatlu.com/youpreneur. That's at GATLUW.com/youpreneur. Youpreneur. It's in the show notes, so you can click a quick tap. Let's get into it with this episode with Chris Ducker. I think it's very important if you've been struggling with the concept of not having control over your own time. We've got a few ideas for how you can take the reins over your schedule. Here's our episode with Chris Ducker. Chris Ducker, welcome back to Amy TV. I'm so excited to have you here. I really wish I was in London chatting with you, to be completely honest, but this will work.
I know you're a big fan of London, England, Cambridge. You've been here to Chateau de Ducaire, as I call it.
Ducaire.
Yeah, Ducaire. I mean, you're one of I think, I don't know, half a dozen people from the United States that have been in my little English sanctuary that we're building here, and I love having you. So yeah, you're welcome anytime, you and Vin.
I know that guest suite is waiting.
Is it a guest suite? We just call it the guest room. I mean, I guess it could be a suite. We've got that little old 300-year-old
Chateau Ducaire. I mean, of course.
Yeah. It's a suite. It's a suite. From this day forward, it will always be known as a suite.
Chris, you are, how long have you been in business? You are a very successful entrepreneur. You have tried a lot of different businesses, and you've had a lot of experience to try to figure out where did you want to go and spend your time and grow your empire. How long have you been at this?
18 years now. I've been growing businesses, 18 years. And I've only had one failure.
What was your failure?
It was a company called Your Web PA. We set it up a couple of years after Virtual Staff Finder. And if I'm to be honest, I think I probably drank a little bit of my own Kool-Aid. And I started to believe that, people would just throw money at me because I was the successful guy in the outsourcing space back in those days. And still involved in the outsourcing space, but have nothing to do with those businesses day to day anymore. But yeah, I set it up. And basically what it was like a freelance website, but you wouldn't be kind of putting your jobs up on a job board and, waiting for 100 people to reply. It was, there was half a dozen things that we could do: create content, design graphics, design ebooks, video editing, that sort of type of stuff. And I thought, hey, I'm going to do that. And people will hire us just because everybody is under the roof of Chris Ducker. And it was horrible. It was horrible because obviously we needed to mark everything up, right? So we needed a profit margin. And so we marked everything up. I think we went in at like 30% initially and then went down to 20. Still didn't work. We had, I don't know, probably a dozen clients in the 6 months that we were up and running. But I knew pretty early on that it was destined to doom. So yeah, all in all, probably about 9 months of my life. And if I had to put a number on it, probably 40 grand out of pocket.
Yikes.
But hey, you live and learn. It's okay. Move on to the next one.
What do you think you did wrong in that situation? Like, how could you have tested concept better?
Well, that's the thing. I didn't test it. That's where I went wrong. I didn't validate it, period. Like I said, I believed because of the game I was in and the reputation that I had, that people would just flock to us. And that was not the case in any way, shape or form. It didn't work. So, I closed the door pretty quickly.
But it's experiences like that, the risks that you take, and clearly that's a great example of a risk taken that did not pay off. But you do kind of let it pay off now because you have this failure that you can talk about, and you have many other successes you can talk about. Different areas of business that not only you've really had your hands in, but you work with so many clients who have different types of businesses. You see the inner workings of so many different businesses. I feel like you've gotten to a point where your schedule is 1,000% your decision. Like, would you say it's pretty rare that something's on your calendar that you were like, why did I say yes to this? Like,
No. Super rare for that to happen. I can't even remember the last time it happened.
It's amazing.
Quite frankly.
That's got to be a great feeling.
It's great. I mean, like, here's the whole thing, right? As entrepreneurs, why do we kick off our business in the first place? We kick off our business in the first place because we're kind of done working for the man. We want to have our own schedule. We want to make our own money, et cetera, et cetera. And then what happens is you set up your business and you realize actually that you've got to work harder than you've ever worked before, that you're actually not going to make any money for a few years. And your lifestyle is just going to be work. Yeah. I've since learned that there are ways around that. And I think anybody that starts a business today is incredibly lucky that they're not doing it 10, 15, 20 years ago like I did, because there's software in place to help you. There's services in place to help you. There's processes, SOPs there to help you. Things that you can quite literally just swipe and deploy, right? I didn't have any of that stuff. I don't think you had much of it either. I'm showing my age now. But genuinely speaking, it's easier to start a business today than it ever has been. But with that being said, because of that low barrier to entry, there's more competition, there's more noise, it's harder to stand out. And so what I do is I work with people, like you say, from a plethora of industries. That keeps me on my toes as well. And figuring out how to get through that noise, how to own an industry or a niche instead of just kind of get lost in it, and genuinely how to actually lean into our successes, lean into our strengths and what makes us, and not so much into the weaknesses. You often hear people say, "Oh, I'm going to work on my weaknesses." Don't do that. Don't work on your weaknesses.
And it sounds so depressing. Ugh.
I know, let someone else do that. You just do the stuff that you're good at. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what we focus on. But yeah, I love the fact that I'm 100% in control of my schedule.
I love that you say that. I feel like I was just thinking about this differently after you said that. I feel like somebody could go, yeah, but I have to work hard and I have to do some things I really, really don't want to do, which is partially true, but you shouldn't make yourself feel so bad to the point that it's like, business shouldn't be fun. I shouldn't be having fun all the time. There should be other things that I have to manage, because there's this scale of you being in your creative genius, that zone, and doing the thing that is extraordinary to you. And then there's the opposite end of the spectrum where you're like, I hate my job and oh my gosh, this is a nightmare because my job, I'm the boss and I don't like my boss. Yeah. And you don't want to end up there, because I think that's where we're starting to understand burnout.
Yes, and it's inevitable. Burnout is inevitable. It's avoidable as well. But it's inevitable for the entrepreneur that it'll come for you in some way, shape, or form. And that's why I'm a big believer of, engaging the hustle culture on occasion, but it's not a sustained thing. Like I always say that hustle is a season. It's not a lifestyle, right? It's a season. You go through short bursts of hard work of maybe burning the midnight oil a little bit, maybe working. I haven't worked a Friday for like 8 years, but that's not entirely true. There have been, probably a dozen times in those 8 years where I've had to quote unquote work on a Friday, but there's never anything on my schedule on a Friday, right? It's always blank. So I think it's a season, hustle, genuinely. And what is hustle? It's working hard at the end of the day, right? But it's not a sustainable strategy to business success. It's not. What it is just a short burst of energy that you can kind of engage in to be able to scale things as and when you need to.
I'm so glad you just said that, because you just called me out, because
this is not the first time that's happened.
I know.
Just so you know.
This is why we're very good friends, because I just get free therapy in the business world from Chris whenever we hang out. You called me out because what's fascinating to me now, and last time we had this conversation on Amy TV, I believe it was the last time, it was a number of years ago, and we got to talk a little bit about your Fridays off and spending time with your kids during that time. And I've just now become a new mother, and the rude awakening that has happened is where I was like, oh, I'm good at doing this momming thing, and I'm good at doing this business thing, and I was looking at them as these like separate little entities. But what's happened is the hustle mentality for my business, where it's like, oh, if things aren't going so great, that's okay. I just gotta go and get the thing and do the thing and go and grind and grind and grind. And I actually did that for 10 years, which probably resulted in my infertility for a short period of time. And now I literally can't do that. There is no amount of hustle that I can do at the level I did it before. There is some new version of it, but the previous level of hustle that I could have done, I cannot do now.
No,
it's fascinating that I'm like, oh wow, I can't have it all right now,
right,
in the way that I'm familiar.
And whether you are a parent or not is actually irrelevant at this point when we talk about this, because I'm a big believer, the whole kind of, multitasking thing, like that's a total myth. Multitasking, don't ever buy a book on multitasking.
Seriously.
Okay, don't ever do that. It'll be a waste of money. Buy Amy's book or buy my book. They'll help you. A book on multitasking will just like waste your money and your time. Quite ironic there as well, right?
Yeah.
Like genuinely, multitasking doesn't exist. Call me out. Anybody in the comments, call me out on that. I'd love to debate it. I believe genuinely that it's not about multitasking. It's switch tasking, right? And actually, the switch tasking really comes down to one thing and one thing only, and that is your priorities. It's that simple. So at this particular moment in time, what is my number one priority? Tomorrow morning, what is my number one priority? At the weekend, what is my number one priority? It always comes down to those priorities, right? And this isn't a to-do list we're talking about. This is actual time on the schedule. What should I be doing right now? Everything else becomes a non-negotiable, right? So things like parenting, maybe you've got to take your kid to a doctor, clinic meetup or something like that. Or if you're not a parent, maybe you've got a wedding that you need to attend to, or, something else. Like the priority is in that moment, what should I be working on right now? And what's happening is when you say yes to that one thing, you're saying no to everything else, right? When you say yes to one thing, you say no to everything and anything else. And that's not multitasking. You can't do two things at once. It's not possible. Why do you think it's illegal to use your mobile phone and drive a car? It's because it's not possible to stay focused on the road. So it comes down to priorities,
I love that. Well, let's go on that. I'm really curious about this conversation specifically. We talked about this a little bit before, but we just scratched the surface. And I think if there's anything people struggle with, it's knowing what to say yes and no to, especially if they're just getting started in a business of some kind. Because there may be opportunities, right, that come along and you're like, ooh, should I say yes to that? It doesn't quite sound like what I'm going for right now or what I think I should do. But let's just, from a basic level, you wake up in the morning. What is something that you immediately know that you don't even have to make the decision? You don't have to use up decision-making power first thing in the morning. You immediately know you're saying no to something in the morning. And what then do you get to say yes to in turn?
So I don't touch my phone at all in the morning until I'm awake. The bathroom situation has been taken care of. The breakfast situation has been taken care of. And then actually I do 30 minutes of what I call deep reading after breakfast every morning as well. And at that point, I'll pick up the phone. Now, it's a tough one because I'm an Aura Ring user. And so I'd love to see what my sleep score is the moment I wake up and kind of just stretch for the phone sort of thing. And I really had to train myself not to do this. Was not easy. This has not been the morning no thing for a while. But, it's genuinely just probably over the last 6 months or so I've been doing this. And it's a bit of a game changer, to be honest with you, because you just get on with your day. And then, when it becomes time for me to check in on the world, I'll do that. And generally, 9 times out of 10, I'm looking at messages from my high-end coaching clients. They have direct message access to me as their mentor. We call it the mentor messenger. And so I'll look at those first, and I'll reply and send some voice notes and things like that. And then I say no to everything else for the entire morning because I take care of my creative work first. So all of the busy work, like checking emails, checking social, talking to the team, all that sort of type of stuff, that all actually happens after lunch. That's my kind of 1 to 4 p.m. thing. And then I usually end most days at 4 p.m. But prior to lunchtime, it is all about, usually I'll take like a mid-morning break to exercise. I do that 3 times a week, not every day, 3 times a week. And then the rest of the time I'm deep in creative work, Amy. So it's writing, it's maybe shooting video, maybe recording a podcast. Maybe I might be doing an interview with somebody else if they're on this side of the world. If not, I'll do it later in the day. But generally speaking, creative work only before lunchtime, nothing else.
I love that. And that speaks to me. I feel like I'm the same way. And if I'm thinking of someone who's like, that's all fine and good, you can do that. I don't know that I can do that. What advice do you have to somebody who really feels as though they don't have the control over their calendar that we seem to make it seem so easy to achieve?
Well, yes, let's caveat all of that with some real deal wording, right? And that is that it ain't easy. It ain't easy. We are more connected today as a human race than ever before. And because of that, you are getting notifications all day long. People want your time. They want your attention. They want your focus throughout the entire day. The news flash here really is that the only person that can fix that is you. No one else can fix it. It'll all come down to you at the end of the day, right? And so if you turn around and say, oh man, if lunchtime comes by and you're like, oh, I got nothing done on my to-do list this morning. I'm looking at it now. I've got nothing done because so-and-so called me up out of nowhere. Or I had to start replying to DMs on Instagram or replying to comments on YouTube or whatever it is. If that's not on your schedule, then don't do it at that point. Like if something's not scheduled, then don't do the work. If something needs to be done, schedule it and then do the work, right? You plan your work and you work your plan. I often say that if something's not scheduled, it doesn't get done. There's a very good reason for that, because everything that I do on a weekly basis as the owner of several businesses, it's all on my schedule. Everything goes on my schedule. 15 minutes in the afternoon for social, on the schedule. 30 minutes for exercise 3 times a week, on the schedule. If I'm going to go out and prune my bonsai, that's on the schedule. I'm not even joking.
I'm so jealous of your bonsai, by the way. When you share them on Instagram, it's gorgeous. They're gorgeous.
Yeah. They've all grown quite a bit over the last couple of years. There's a lot of trees out on the property now. Too many, actually. It's become a bit of an obsession. But nonetheless, what I'm getting at here is that it comes down to priorities again. When you say yes to something, you say no to something else. And here's the thing. Another newsflash. Your yeses are a commodity. Right?
Yeah.
Your yeses are worth something. Yeah. Your time is worth something. So if somebody irritates the heck out of you, or can I pick your brain, why would you give that person your time? let alone any of your brain, right? Like, what's the point? If somebody's coming at you all the time and they're asking for, they're texting you, they're interrupting you, whoever it is, even if it's mum, mum, it's cool. I love you. I do, but I got to call you at the end of the day. Stop texting me. I can't work. You own it. Particularly as an entrepreneur, you own your time. So it's down to you to make sure, just like if you owned a property, you would make sure that the electrics were safe and that the roof had no leaks in it and that the plumbing was running properly and the heating was working for the colder months. That's you and your time as well. You got to make sure that you protect and maintain your time if you want it to be something that's used properly.
I want to throw a question at you that just came to me. It was inspired by a video I made recently and some comments that I got in the comments section. There was basically a comparison that I used between, let's say your neighbor came over, knocked on your door and asked you for some time. And, on an ordinary day, you might just say, okay, and you'd say yes in that situation and walk over and give them some time. But if your neighbor came over and knocked on the door and asked you for $1,000, your answer would probably be really different, right? Yeah. Especially if there's no explanation. But certainly $1,000 is a steep amount of money. What was interesting was the answer to time tends to be yes pretty frequently, and the answer to money tends to be no very frequently. But the questions I got was, well, I mean, if they came over and asked for like $100, because I can't value my time at $1,000. So I thought it was a really interesting nuance there, this thought process behind how much is my time actually worth so that I know what to say yes and what to say no to. And I think you could go down many different roads with that, because it's like, my response to these guys would be, I would never say in a million years that a minute of my time is less than a lot of money. Like, I don't even care if I'm really getting paid that in the real world. I may not have this minute tomorrow. Right.
Exactly. And I think the difference between yourself and somebody else saying something of the contrary is the fact that you're just a more experienced business owner. That's really it. Let me tell you a very quick and embarrassing story, okay?
Let's
and I'm not going
hear
to talk about, no. I'm not talking about the time when I did a 45-minute keynote in front of a room full of professional speakers in Philadelphia at the National Speakers Association annual conference with my zip down the entire time. I'm not going to talk that. Okay. I'm not going to talk about that.
Okay, we'll just let that one
But another
slide.
embarrassing story was what happened was in 2011, I started running mastermind days. So this is a time where I'd have, I would be traveling a lot speaking, and I'd kind of rock up into a city and I'd stay an extra day, and to kind of offset the costs of travel and things like that, I would run a private mastermind day. So usually it would be, you went to one, right? In Cleveland with me.
You've inspired me to do the same thing as well. And I've done the same thing in the past. It's an amazing idea.
Good. So it's a great way to be able to touch your audience personally, right? And serve them obviously in person. It's another great way to be able to make money, right? And charge what you're worth in that regards, and to kind of offset travel costs and things like that. So when the first one I ever did was in 2011. It was in London, and this is when I was still living over in Asia in the Philippines. And I charged for an entire day, morning snacks, lunch, and afternoon snacks, an entire day of masterminding in a beautiful venue in London. I charged, drum roll, £150 for the entire day, right?
Wow.
Just so you know, when I do that now with 10 people, I charge £1,500 for the day. So
wow.
It just goes to show you how green I was back in those days, right? And more importantly, how much I didn't value my time nor my expertise, even though we're talking, still a good few years away, a few years ago now, but I'd still been running my own business, whatever it was, 5, 6, 7 years or whatever at that point. And here I am only charging £150 for my attention for the entire day. Madness, right? Madness. So it comes with time, just like your mentality is different to maybe some, and I'm not having a pop at any of the Amy TV viewers out there, because I know you're all amazing, but it purely comes down to experience and figuring out what your time is worth and charging accordingly, and not questioning what one person charges for their time over another, because it's all personal. We're all on our own journeys, and at the end of the day, I will charge what I think I'm worth. You will charge what you're worth. And, hopefully we can all be happy with it at the end of the day. And by the way, in 2011, I was happy with 150 times 10 for the day. Now I wouldn't get out of bed for it. So it just goes to show you, you know what I mean?
And that it is okay to be on that upward trajectory, and it's okay.
And you should be.
Absolutely. And
you should be.
And you should be should be. I don't like to say should, but having gratitude for the people who did pay that 150 quid, right? Like, it's like amazing. Totally. When you're starting to get that exposure. You should never discount yourself for achieving a customer, somebody who's trusting you.
Right. And let me just point out here a couple things. Number one, you said the word quid, and I think that's great.
I did that for
Number
you.
two, and you did a little wink just then as well, so that's so good. So number one, you said quid. Number two, one of the gentlemen that was in that room in, I believe it was September of 2011, is now a member of my Roundtable Mastermind. And he pays £1,500 per month to invest in himself and that group of individuals.
Wow.
Right? So we're talking all these years later. Why? Because, as you know, I'm a big fan of the personal brand business and building a business around you and your uniqueness and your expertise. But over the years, he's grown his business with me in the background. I've not helped him every step of the way, but I've helped him on occasion as and when he's needed it. And now for the last year, he's been sitting on the round table, and he has no intention of going anywhere anytime soon. He told me that in person last week when we had our fall or our autumn retreat for everybody. So it just goes to show you the customer journey can be as long as you want it to be. It's down to you.
I love that, because it takes words like creating a customer and the journey and scalability, totally. And it turns it into a real story that's actually happened. So speaking of charging what you're worth and creating those customers, I come to you whenever I need advice on this kind of thing. Anytime oh my gosh, my business, what am I going to do? I go to Chris Ducker, and I want you to help my community with that as well. You're hosting a free live event coming up here in November. I'd love for you to tell everyone about it.
Yeah, so this is going to be so much fun. And this is free, not because I don't value my time, but because I genuinely love giving back to the entrepreneurial community as and when I can as well. So it's called the Elevated Entrepreneur Experience. It's brand new. I've never done this before. It's 3 days, November 8, 9, and 10, at about an hour or so each day. We're going to have an incredible time. Day one, we're going to dive deep on your business no matter where you're at. It doesn't matter whether you're just starting out, whether you've been going for a few years, or you're already at 7 figures and beyond. We're going to take great care of you. We're going to talk real numbers, because the numbers never lie. I'm a big numbers geek. So we're not going to talk about numbers, things like how many people are following you on Instagram and stuff like that. But what we're going to talk about is profit, margin, costs, all that good stuff, right? And we're going to really break down your business and then build it back up again. It's going to be amazing. Number two, what we're going to do is on day two, we're going to focus in sharing with you a strategy that I call P2P plus. P2P stands for people to people. And this is my conversational relationship building strategy on steroids, where you go from taking conversations and you turn them into conversions. So this is a strategy I use in my businesses. I teach all of my coaching clients this as well. They absolutely love it. You don't need to run any paid ads. You don't need to do any massive amount of work. And I'm going to give everybody a complete script that they can just swipe and deploy and just get started with it like today.
Oh my gosh.
It will, let me tell you, Amy, this will bring leads into your business, high quality leads every single day, and clients every single week. There's no doubt about it. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. So that's day two. Day three. Oh, day three is a big one though. Day three is going to be, we're going to bring it all in, and it's just going to be like the Boston Celtics winning like another world championship. I'm a big Celtics fan, by the way. So day three, we're going to be talking. I
find it funny that you're a Celtics fan. Anyway.
Are you serious? Look. Going off camera. Check this out. Here we go.
It's like me saying quid, you being a Celtics fan.
I will tell you the story of how I become a Celtics fan the next time we're with each other.
Yeah, we gotta save
I'm
that.
sure none of your fans are remotely interested in this. But anyway, what they probably will be interested in though is day 3 of the Elevated Entrepreneur Experience, because I'm going to unveil the 6-figure roadmap that everybody needs to follow step by step. All the good stuff, no fluff, step by step. Monetization strategies, marketing outreach strategies, the whole kit and caboodle, all included, and we're going to bust it down one level at a time, going from, no matter where you are, you could be, $2, $3, $4 grand a month. I'm going to show you how to get to that 6 figures as quickly as possible, and it's all about going further, faster together. So that's what we're all about. It's going to be amazing.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be in attendance for this event. Chris, is going to be so much fun. I miss your events, and now we get to do it online. So that's, if that's the closest we can get, I'm thrilled. So I'm going to be there. The link is in the description down below. So make sure that you check it out, because if I'm going, you should be going. Okay. We've got to prep for 2023. We've got to make it the best year ever. And Chris is going to help us do it.
Not only that, but I just want to state, do you know how much business I bring in the last couple of months of the year? That when everybody else has taken their foot off the gas, Amy, I'm telling you, I push it down even harder. And I'm not talking about hustle. What I'm talking about is I don't stop my systems. I don't stop my team. I don't stop anything. In fact, we actually do work a little harder. Not longer days or anything like that, but we really zoom in on 2 or 3 top priorities within the space of, say, I don't know, the last 6 to 8 weeks of the year. And we always have an incredible quarter 4. So this will help you end 2022 in profit, right? But start off 2023 with the clarity, with the confidence, and with the schedule, with the entire plan that you need to make 2023 amazing. And that's what I want for everybody.
I love it.
After the last couple of years.
I love it. That's what we're going to do. Everybody, see you there November 8th through the 10th. It's free. It's a ton of value. You cannot miss this. Chris, we're going to be there. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
It's my pleasure, darling. Take good care.
Thank you so much to Chris for being on the show today. Find out more details about the Elevated Entrepreneur Experience in the link in the show notes. It's at gatlu.com/youpreneur. That's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Remember, subscribe for good vibes, kiss the ones you love, and go after the life you want. Cheers.